Hi, friends. I'm Julia Lashay, and this is my KW story.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this week's My KW Story. Today, we are talking to our Head of Belonging and Inclusion, Julia Lashay. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I cannot wait to share my KW story with you.
I love your story because you started at such an early age in the real estate world, and we're going to talk to our viewers all about it. It's absolutely fantastic, and to see where you have gone in that time. Not to mention, Julia's really fun to interview, so that gives us a huge plus with her energy. So let's just start from the beginning. Talk to us about how you got into real estate and when that was.
Okay. So in high school, I took one of those little career assessments that say what you should be when you grow up. And mine said that maybe I'd be interested in being a property manager. So I immediately went to take pre-licensing because you had to be licensed in Minnesota to be a property manager. So I went and signed up for the licensing classes. I think when I signed up for them, I wasn't even 18 yet because I graduated high school when I was 17, but I wasn't even old enough yet, but I started taking the classes on weekends. And when I was in the weekend classes, I'm listening to the people talk and what they're talking about. And I'm thinking, I could probably sell a house. And for some reason, I thought that the pre-licensing class would teach me how to buy a house because I wanted to buy a house. So I was in the class for all the wrong reasons, but I learned from being in the class that maybe I could sell a house or two. And it seemed like a much better option than like taking calls from people who are complaining about mice or their refrigerator not working or anything like that. So that's why I went. And as soon as I turned 18, I took the test and I got my real estate license.
So when we were doing our pre-interview, you said your real estate journey started as a buyer's agent, and yet that's not necessarily exactly what it is. While you worked with buyers, you didn't start your career as a buyer's agent, as those of us in the color world know it today. So you're 18, you get your real estate license, you choose against property management, which I'm very glad that you did, and talk to me about the buyer's agent standpoint. What came about there? Why did that happen?
Well, I didn't call it that. We didn't call it that. I did end up going on and buying my first house. I was 19. I was getting out of 18, turning 19. So I bought my first house, which, by the way, I was my own realtor. And it was my first transaction. There's a whole story behind that. We won't tell that one today.
That's a different interview. We're going to get there at a different time.
It was a hot mess. But I bought a house. And because I did, my sphere, when we teach people how to get started in real estate, we say, start with your sphere. Well, I'm an 18-year-old kid, right? Like who's my sphere? So my sphere was really just other people that I knew that were buying. I didn't start as a buyer's agent because that was like the job title. It was the only people I knew. I didn't know anybody who already owned a house to sell a house. I only knew people to buy a house. And I was working in the evenings at this call center for AT&T. I was the supervisor on duty, by the way. So when you call and you're like, I'm mad about my cell phone bill, you get some 18-year-old kid. That was me. And the girl next to me was like, I want to buy a house. And then her aunt wanted to buy a house. And then the guy across from me was like, I want to buy a house. And so it just became that I was helping people buy houses because that's all I knew. I didn't know anybody who already had a house.
So when you don't know anybody to buy a house or to sell a house, you're working with the people who are buying them. First-time home buyers, your sphere of influence, right? Natural reaction. That carried on for quite some time, though.
It carried on for like 15 years. And even more so, I started teaching first-time home buyer classes in the community. I taught them at my church. I taught them for what we called home stretch. So if you're getting first-time home buyer down payment assistance, they require you to take home buyer education. I started teaching home buyer education. In fact, at one point I ran a nonprofit and we facilitated the education. But so that was my whole sphere, was just I was helping first-time home buyers get into home ownership. And they happened to look like me because they were people in my community and people who saw that I could buy a home and they could too. And so a lot of it was underserved communities. And I was teaching in the underserved communities, and I was involved in a lot of the community advisory committees. The city would have advisory committees about first-time homebuyer programs, things like that. A lot of things about increasing Black home ownership. I was involved in all of that. It was just the natural space that I was in. I started writing classes and curriculum about first-time home buyers and helping people in underserved communities. I was on all the boards and the chairs. I chaired the diversity committee at our local association, at our state association, because it was just my natural space of helping people get into homeownership was just kind of my thing.
So it was your natural space based on where you grew up, who you are, to start working with first-time home buyers in that range. And it found you in the niche of inclusion and belonging. When you
and at the time, we didn't call it that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you realize what was happening as that was taking place? Or were you just like, I'm working with my community?
No, and it wasn't until really recently, I think maybe even when I got to Austin and the lady asked me, so when did you start working in the diversity space? And I'm like, 1981 when I was born, like I was born into this. It wasn't like an option, right? I just naturally have that's our plight, right? Is helping underserved or historically marginalized people excel in real estate. It wasn't something that I was like, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to go and work in the world of diversity. It just happened to be my world. And they put a name to it now. There's a name to it now where people call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. But over the last 20 something years, we called it community service.
It's the happenstance that leads you to where you belong to be.
That's exactly what happened, I suppose. Yeah.
So you worked for an extended period of time, mostly with home buyers in your hometown at that standpoint. And then the market begins to shift in that 2008, 2009 period, right? Market crashes. What happens next?
So there's a brief stint. I always tell people I've been with KW for 18 of my 23 years in real estate. But the truth is, we call it when I ran away from home. I ran away from home for a few years, and I was actually a broker at a local competitor. And I was recruiting at that real estate company and serving as the broker of record. And I did that until when the crash happened around 2009, 2010, the owner came to me and said, hey, listen, I can't pay you anymore. You're going to have to go out there and sell real estate, which is like not the time to be trying to go back out and start selling real estate. Because even myself, I had a lot of properties that I lost. My tenants couldn't pay and I couldn't pay them because I'm a realtor, in a crash. So I started looking online and other things. And I saw that my market center, the Minneapolis Lakes Market Center, was hiring for an MCA. And I thought, which by the way, I joined that market center when it first opened in 2005, and then I ran away from home. But I came back to my market center around 2010 as the MCA because that was the posted position. And I qualified for it. I took the accounting test, right? We didn't have KPA then. But if we had, we would have known that was not the fit for me, but we didn't. So I came back to the Minneapolis Lakes Market Center in the capacity of the Market Center Administrator.
So you were the MCA, 2010, you step into this role. What did your job look like as that? Because you as an MCA is not necessarily what an MCA has always looked like in every market center that I've ever visited. So what did you do as an MCA?
It was very different. The way that we had my role set up is that I recruited what we call, now they're called R1s and R2s. Then we called them new agents and market share, right? So my role, I was recruiting new agents because I held all the career nights and we would recruit new agents and I would do Ignite training. And I did those things as an MCA, which is not like the typical MCA role. And I kind of joke sometimes that I moonlit as an MCA because really it was when all the agents left the office that I would do my real job, my MCA work. And I would work throughout the night as the MCA. But I did that for a long time because I love agents and I love recruiting agents and I love helping people grow their business. And I still had the role and the job of actually doing the business of the market center. So I served in a really interesting capacity, little different than what most MCAs were doing at that time.
So you worked as the MCA in a role that, for all intents and purposes, is not where we would naturally put you. Had we looked at your KPA today to that role, we wouldn't put Julia in that role. But you succeeded in it and you did well, which afforded you a new opportunity. What did you do next?
Yeah, so I did it for a long time. I did it for like 5, 6 years. I was the MCA at that market center. And of course, like I said, I was training agents and things of that nature. And we did have a productivity coach. She was a productivity coach for all four of our OP's market centers, and that just wasn't working out. So they started hiring for a productivity coach, and they were flying people in and interviewing all these fancy people. And I asked our broker OP at the time, I said, would you consider me for the role? That's kind of what I'm doing anyway. And they did. In fact, it was because Bruce Hardy had just came and done an ALC retreat, and he had this little cheesy commercial. So I called and I used his little commercial on them. I thought maybe that would like work, and it did because they did allow me to interview for the role, and I became the productivity coach, and we created a coaching program at our market center, and I did that for another 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
So you were in the PC role for 4 to 5 years after the MCA role. So you're already in leadership positions and have been for some time in your market center. And then something happens in that PC role and you meet somebody and an opportunity presents itself. Talk to us about what takes place next through that PC role.
Well, if you've ever taken my unconscious bias in real estate class, you've kind of heard this story. And I don't want to be a spoiler alert, because if you haven't taken it, I want you to. But I met someone, one of the agents in the coaching program, and he came to me after Ignite was over, because I was teaching Ignite, and came to me after Ignite was over and asked me to help him start a team. And I was just kind of telling him how I've seen people do it. And he was like, no, me and you should start a team. And we did. We started the Signature Group in Minnesota, and have been fairly successful ever since. And that was really cool, because he was is an awesome and amazing entrepreneur whom I learned from all the time. And now the team has 6 agents and 2 administrative assistants, a director of ops and a transaction coordinator, and does well oftentimes. So we are the #1 team in the Minneapolis Market Center. We do a lot of buyers still, because in our community, a lot of people are still first-time home buyers. Some are first-generation home buyers. But Trey's moved on to do a lot of luxury listings. He does athletes and that kind of stuff now. Yeah.
So your team becomes very successful with your business partner, Trey, and you begin to think about change of scenery for you. And then life shows up. Talk to us about what happens next. Your team is up, you're running, you're thinking change of scenery. Life shows up. What happens?
Yeah. So in Minnesota, I was a founder and past president of Twin Cities National Association of Real Estate Brokers. It's the largest Black trade association that exists. And I was doing a lot of other diversity work. I was on all the committees and all the boards. Actually, I was super overwhelmed. I was just kind of over it. And so I wanted a change of scenery. And I'm like, I want to move to Dallas. I'd always wanted to move to Dallas. So I'm like, I'm going to move to Dallas, and we're going to expand our team, and we're going to start Signature Group Luxury in Dallas. And during that transition, when I was working towards, actually, the truck was packed. We were moving. The day that my son was going to help me drive my truck down, we found out that he had stage 4 cancer. And so that put a halt on all the plans to relocate, all the plans to expand. And it happened very fast. He had come home from college with a pain in his leg. So he had been complaining about the pain for a few weeks before that. Literally that day he came home and was like, I can't feel my leg. We went to the emergency room. They diagnosed him with stage 4 cancer, and he died 4 months later. It was just the craziest experience and the craziest 4 months you could really ever imagine. And I didn't really know what to do after that. I was also, by the way, going through a divorce at the same time. So it was just like, I don't really know what to do. And I decided that I still wanted to go to Texas. After my son passed, which was November 2019, I'm like, I'm going to still do this thing. I'm going to go to Dallas and start the Signature Group Luxury and keep moving forward with life. And then another thing happened. That didn't work out, because as soon as I got to Texas, COVID happened. And, you know, it was January 2020 when I moved there. And literally 2 months later, we were in quarantine. I don't know anybody. You can't really, it's hard to build a business and network and grow when you can't leave the house, when it's like illegal to leave the house. And nobody knew what was going to happen in the world, and everything was flipped upside down. And I ended up just sitting in the house with on quarantine and not knowing exactly what to do. Now, I was serving in the capacity of a director of coaching and training at a Dallas market center during that time. And so I did a little bit of that, but I couldn't expand the team in the way that I intended to because COVID. So that put a little hiccup in things. And then if anybody remembers 2020, also what happened in 2020 was George Floyd. So COVID happens. And then right behind that, there was all this social unrest. And this is when Gary Keller started the Social Equity Task Force in 2020. And all of the regions were assigned to find someone to be a regional ambassador for the Social Equity Task Force. And I was a regional ambassador for North Texas, New Mexico, Memphis region. And so I started doing what I had always done at home, which is working with the Black community and working in real estate and helping to reduce disparities. I now had a role at KW as a regional ambassador to provide social equity in our country and also in our company.
So in 2019, end of 2019, right? That's a hard year. You find out on incredibly short notice that your son is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He passes in 4 months. You still move. 2 months after that, the world shuts down. And then there's extreme social unrest with the George Floyd murder. You didn't let your experiences define you, and you leaned in further into that social equity task force. What drove you to do that? That's the kind of year that can stop people in their tracks.
Yeah, and you have two options. You can stop in your tracks. I mean, that's an option. That is something you can do. When life happens, when tragedy happens, when these types of things, that is an option to just literally go in the corner and sit in a ball and wither away. That is absolutely an option. And on many days, I chose that option. And for me, it was literally just one foot in front of the other. I just have to keep moving forward. I was disappointed because I was such a hustler in the real estate industry. And it went from hustling to like, I can't leave the house. And now I'm grief stricken and all of these things. So just one foot at a time, I would do one thing. I still used my 411. 411 was a big component in this. I created a 411. I still used my 411. And maybe before, when I could have gotten 4 or 5 things done on the 411 this week, I would be proud of myself if I did one. If one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, what's the one thing I'm going to do on this 411? I would just do one thing. And if I want to go back into the corner and hide and crawl on that point, fine. But I at least did something to move forward on the 411. And then it went from, okay, I can do one thing today to maybe I'll do 2 things. Okay, I can do 3 things. And I'd be really proud of myself if I actually finished my 411. And then, and you can just wither away, or you can choose to pick yourself up and move forward at whatever pace that is. It wasn't the pace I was used to. I was used to moving at a very fast pace. And it was frustrating for me that I just was incapable of moving at that pace. But I was really proud that I just moved at all. Like, I'm just going to move a pace and move forward a little bit and just keep moving forward. Honestly, that 411 helped me to be able to do that and still set goals. Because when something like that happens, it is hard to be like, you realize very quickly, you're actually not in control of anything. You're really not in control of anything. So it's very easy to say, set goals for what? I'm not even in control. The world could shut down tomorrow for all I know. My kids could die tomorrow for all I know. I'm not in control of anything, right? So it's easy to be like, I don't have any control over this, but it's a choice to move forward and be resilient. And I encourage anybody who's going through anything like that to choose to move forward at whatever pace that is, but you can sit in the corner and wither away and die, but that's not the right choice. The right choice is to do whatever you can to move forward. And before you know it, you're doing 1 thing and 2 things and 3 things. And before you know it, you're at the headquarters in Austin, Texas at KWRI.
Getting a new job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's so important to highlight. When we did the pre-interview for this, I told Julie, I said, you can bring that aspect up if you want or not. It's up to you. And she said, I think it's important for people to understand that while I'm so high energy, that bad things can happen to people. And sometimes we let bad things consume us. And sometimes we slowly move forward one small task at a time. And bad things happen. Bad things that are out of our control happen. We hit brick walls that are in our control sometimes that are bad things. And bad things happen, and yet you moved forward. So let's fast forward to Q3 of 2020, and you pack up the truck again.
Yeah. So I'm in Dallas, doing my regional ambassador thing for the Social Equity Task Force, and working at a market center there in Dallas. And they asked me, because I write curriculum and I write a lot of classes about diversity and homebuyer. They asked if I would do a master class for family reunion. And I did. And this is the thing I did when I wrote classes and taught classes, like I'm talking to you all on the camera. I didn't realize that people here were using teleprompters. Like I memorized my 20-minute speech. I just want that to be noted that I wrote and memorized that thing in 24 hours. But I did that for a family reunion. And then they called and asked if I wanted to have a conversation with Gary Keller about social equity. And if any of you were here that year, we did family reunion virtually. And Gary and Daniel Dixon and myself, we had a conversation with Gary around social equity. And after that, I was minding my business in my Dallas Market Center, and I got a call on my Google number. And the call comes through and it says, you have a call from Gary Keller. And I'm like, the Gary Keller? So I answer it, and he's like, hi, dear, this is Gary. And I'm thinking like, Gary who, right? Like, Gary who? And it was actually Gary Keller. And he asked me a few questions about the Social Equity Task Force and what we were doing. And if we had any conversations about someone leading it. And I said, yes, we did talk about having someone lead it. And he says, okay, thank you. And he hung up. That's it. Like, he didn't say anything else.
A man, a few words.
Right. So I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what's going on. Long story short, the other regional ambassadors, I guess, did know what was going on because they had some conversations about me leading it. And I'm thankful that they felt that I was a good representative for us and for this movement, the Social Equity Task Force that Gary created. Long story short, I ended up here in 2021, in May of 2021, here at KWRI as the head of inclusion and belonging. Yeah.
So talk to us about being the head of inclusion and belonging at KWRI. What is it that your goals and your mission is for that? What are you doing out there?
Well, my conversation that I had with Gary when we were doing the that interview, in fact, at the end of it, I asked if they could edit it because it didn't convey what I wanted to convey. And he said, what did you want to convey? I wanted to convey that I have had a very good experience at Keller Williams. I have had a phenomenal career here at Keller Williams. I've been able to do whatever it is I wanted to do. I've been an agent. I have a team. I wanted to be the MCA. I wanted to be the PC. Could have been the team leader. I never wanted to be that. Never wanted to be that. But I had an opportunity to be whatever I wanted to be in this organization. And I realized that that wasn't everyone's testimony. And so what I wanted to do was specifically work with leaders on how to make our environments more inclusive so that that is everyone's story, so that everybody, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they look like, what they believe, can come here and say, yeah, this is the place where I can build an amazing real estate career, whatever that looks like for you. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I chose the title Head of Inclusion and Belonging, because that specifically making people feel like they belong here and that they are included in what goes on in this organization was literally all I wanted to do. So that's why I chose that title. And that's really what my mission is for people, whoever they are, to see themselves here at Keller Williams and for us to be the most inclusive, as Mark King would say, to be the most inclusive company on the planet in real estate or otherwise. That's the goal.
So if I'm a business owner, whether that be market center, team, ancillary business title, whatever, it doesn't matter. If I'm associated in this world and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing or everything I can, and I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
What do I do?
Well, and I think what you said is the key word. People don't know what they don't know. And when we start talking about it, especially when they put a label on it, like I said, I've been doing what I just call people work and community work for 20 plus years. The label on it now is diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, which most realtors don't even know what that means. And so we don't even know what we don't know, and we don't know why it even applies to us at all. And what we need to know is that 100% of our clients are people. 100% of the agents at this organization are people. And every single one of them are very different. And I tell you what, that's the number one thing I've learned from being in this role is how many different kinds of people are out there. Like, blew my mind how many different kinds of people are out there. And I mean, not even necessarily just race, gender, religion. I mean, all things, differences in thoughts, differences in how they go about life, differences in perspectives. There's so many different kinds of people. And if we want to work with more people, which we all do, we just simply have to understand people, all of them, the very many, many, many of them. And so I think the first thing that any business owner, anybody who wants to even make a dollar in a people business, which we are, friends, this is a people business, need to understand people. And just working towards the understanding that we are all going to be very different. And we do have very different perspectives. And how do we work with that? Like, I'll use you if you don't mind, Liz, as an example.
Sure. I love being the guinea pig without notice. It's great. Let's go.
You come from, I think you said you came from Detroit or Michigan or something.
Family's all from there. I'm South Florida. Yes.
And you're from Florida, right? Mm-hmm. And so you probably have a very different upbringing than me. You have a different family structure. You did different things in your family. You might have some different perspectives on life, some different biases, some different opinions, whatever. We're just two very different people from two very different places. The reality is I still want to do business with you, right? So how do I learn how to attract you to me when we are so different, right? How do I learn to grow through our differences is what I call it. Because I'm going to guess there's a lot of people just like you, who think just like you, who might be from South Florida just like you, and I want to work with them too. So how do we actually learn to understand people in a people business is really the key way. And so what my goal is kind of twofold. One is to educate realtors about people. That's it. We're in a people business. I just think that whatever class you decide to take, they're all on events.com, events.kw.com. They're on our diversity, equity, inclusion page. Whatever course you decide to take something, whether it's the color of real estate, which talks about this land that we transfer, which is a very important role. And I think we minimize the role that realtors have in the American economy and in society. It's a really big deal, what we do. So how do we be better conduits of the American dream? You can learn that. That's the color of real estate class. We can learn about our own biases. I have a whole bunch of biases that I'm fully aware of and some that I'm not super aware of, but I just want to do better with people. So maybe you take the unconscious bias in real estate class to learn how to just show up better, for your clients and for the agents that you work with. Or you take the Agent of Distinction certification, which is literally the diversity certification that we wrote for our agents to learn more about people. That's all it is let's learn about people, all the different people. How do you advertise to the people? How do you talk to the different people? What should you say? What should you not say? What should you never say, friends? Like all of those things that we learn. How do you go out and be a community leader? How do you be an industry leader? What is our role in all of that, right? So any of those classes is really about education, learning how to work with people.
People are people.
A business.
Right? Like that. I think that's so important to see there is it's people, right? It's just about people. And people are dynamic and unique and complex and complicated. So complex. It's all about people. So,
it's not, and I think getting rid of the notion that with this tagline they've put on everything, DEI, it's not about somebody trying to get you to see their way, or I need you to see it my way. Because even if we don't see things the exact same, Liz, I'm using you again as an example, even if we don't see things the exact same, we have different perspectives on things. That's okay. You know, I'm totally with you being you and thinking what you think and you being you. And I hope that you're okay with me being me and thinking what I think, because I still want to do business with you. I got a buyer that wants to buy, you got a seller that wants to sell, right? Like, how do we make this thing happen? And so it really is just about learning more about people and learning about ourselves so we can be better people.
I love it. And it's so insightful. Thank you, Julia, for sharing that. And we will include all of Julia's contact information. So if anyone wants to get a hold of her or learn more about diversity, equity, inclusion, or any of the classes that she has written and that we have for that, you'll be able to. That'll be easy find. But now for the fun fact.
Yeah.
Tell us something that people probably don't know about Julia Lashay.
I have so many fun facts. This is a not so fun fact.
Well, tell us the fact. You can label it however you'd like. Tell us the unknown fact.
So the not so fun fact, I am actually 100% gray. My hair is 100% gray. I was telling Liz, I've been working all morning to cover up these things with my little black pen that I carry around, because I am 100%, actually like silver white I was salt and pepper at 19. Right. And so since then it has gone dramatically downhill, and my hair is actually 100% gray, and I color it like every 2 to 3 weeks so that I can stay youthful looking, because I look a good 10 to 15 years older if I actually let it be gray. And I don't want that yet. I'm not ready. You're not
there. That's just a phase that you are not ready for.
Not ready.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for the very insightful and very energetic interview today. It has been a blast. I know our viewers got a ton out of this. If there was any one last mic drop moment or anything you could add for them, what would it be?
I'm so glad you asked. Really, I wanted to end this on, I hope what you all see through this story is that you too can be whatever you want to be in this organization. This is, in fact, the place where entrepreneurs thrive.
Perfect. I love it. Julia, thank you so much. Everyone else, we will see you next week on our next My KW story. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.